Welcome to Fantasy Football Today Dynasty. I am your host, Heath Cummings, joined today by the host. Many people call him the best male podcast host in the industry, Adam Aizer. Look at this. You guys don't know this, but whenever we get onto YouTube, Adam always gets a little bit disturbed when I'm on the left side and he's on the right side because the host is supposed to be on the left side. And now he's moved it. So now he feels better. I'm perfectly comfortable on either side. Adam, thank you for being here.
You have earned the left side, Heath. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited about my team. I have made a lot of mistakes in the other Dynasty League we're in, so I tried to do the exact opposite. But then I ended up basically drafting a lot of guys that are on the other crappy teams, so I don't know how I did. We'll see. But I like the team I'm drafting so far. What are we, 11 picks in? Something like that? Yeah. Oh, 12.
I think I just made my 11th round pick of Harold Fannin because I had to have someone young. A little bit of a preview of what's coming. We are breaking down the first half of the FFT Dynasty Superflex tight end premium half point per first down league. We are 11 or 12 rounds in, and I just want to say if you're in that league and you're somebody who donated to St. Jude, thank you. I believe we're over $170,000 raised now, so thank you, all of you that have supported the show, that have supported St. Jude. We wouldn't get to do any of this without you. Adam, you had a special request, so before we go through the round-by-round breakdown of the current draft we're doing, a couple of years ago, we did the Baked Burger Dynasty Draft, and you kind of put that whole thing together. We raised some money for St. Jude for that as well. And you wanted to just tell us how great your first 6 picks were.
Oh my gosh, the anatomy of a bad Dynasty team. So this was, Superflex, not the same. No tight end premium, no point for first down. It was full PPR. So I drafted Trevor Lawrence, 9th overall. The next pick was Jamar Chase. I drafted Deshaun Watson in the 2nd round. And then Anthony Richardson and Christian McCaffrey were the next picks. So I start Richardson and I start Lawrence and Watson. 3rd round, I go Travis Etienne, and the 4th round, Stephon Diggs, and the 5th round, Ken Walker. So
Ken Walker was a good pick.
It was a fine pick, but that was after Walker's rookie season. That was after Etienne's 2nd season, which was basically his rookie season. It was after Trevor Lawrence looked like he was going to be really good. Not a lot of provenness there. So, I took Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. with my first 2 picks of this draft, but I feel better about them. But I was determined to be more wide receiver strong and less running back strong. I think that's
which is an interesting thing, because as you were looking at the rules for this league, you came to realize that running backs dominate first downs. And this is a half PPR, half point per first down league. And the thing that I like about that scoring is it does challenge the dynasty approach of generally ignoring running backs and going heavier on wide receivers. I'm glad you brought that league up, because my draft was also, at least at the beginning, influenced by that, because I got about 3 or 4 rounds in, if you remember, and decided, you know what, I'm just going to go win the league in year 1. And you were so mad by the end of that draft at how good my team was. And like literally a third of my team got hurt in the first month of the season. It was an absolute disaster. I had to do a rebuild. I think I'm on the right track now, thankfully, because I picked up Ollie Gordon and Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt in the later rounds of our most recent rookie draft, which will help out a lot, I think. I've also got Trevion Henderson on that team. But let's talk about this draft. Again, this was a super flex, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and 2 flexes. It is half PPR, half point per first down. There is full PPR for tight ends. So if we can go ahead and pull up round 1, what we're going to do is go through the first 10 rounds real quick. We'll take a look at our teams, talk about how our teams look so far. I was going to say no surprises at the top because it was 4 quarterbacks first, but there's a bit of a surprise. Jaden Daniels went number 1 overall, followed by Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Jalen Hurts. I took Brock Bowers at 7th, Malik Neighbors, Justin Jefferson, Ashton Genty, Bijan Robinson, and CeeDee Lamb. So mostly quarterbacks and wide receivers in round 1, with the exception being that I took a tight end and Ashton Genty and Bijan Robinson went at the end of the draft. Adam, I guess the first question I would have for you is, do you think with Daniels, Jackson, and Allen, especially in Dynasty, it's just kind of personal preference?
No, I think it should be Daniels.
Yeah.
I think Allen and Jackson are, especially Allen, we're already seeing he's running less, right? So they're getting a little bit older, and I think it should be Daniels 1. I also think it should be Hurts 4 in this format. But no, I think it should definitely be Daniels 1.
That's another good point, because when you're in a half point per first down rushing league, that does hurt the passing quarterbacks. And so Jalen Hurts, I think, probably should have gone ahead of Joe Burrow, but it's hard. Again, I think people have questions. Is Jalen Hurts' future career as long as Joe Burrow's future career? And so that's a question worth asking. Were you really happy when I took Brock Bowers at 7 so you could have Malik Neighbors?
No, I was going to take Bowers. I was actually surprised. I was thinking about McBride at 8. Felt a little early for him. He was a steal. He went like 4th pick or so of round 2. So, again, I have Neighbors in the crappy Dynasty League team, so I didn't necessarily want him on both, but he's a pretty good guy to start your squad with. I thought you made a really good pick with Bowers, and I was definitely considering him because, again, I mean, tight end premium means different things in different leagues. Is it full PPR for receivers and running backs and 1.5 for tight ends? That in this league, it's twice as valuable a catch. It's half PPR for running backs and wide receivers and a full point for a tight end. It's a huge advantage. And then the first downs thing too. Yeah, first downs are dominated by running backs. So wide receivers devalued in this format, but it was either going to be Neighbors or Genty or Bijan Robinson for me. And I don't want to be I don't want to be running back dependent in Dynasty. So I went with Neighbors.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised that Genty went before Robinson. I've got Robinson 1 and Genty 2, and they're close enough that I don't think it's a bad pick. I was also a little surprised to see 2 running backs in the first round of a super flex draft. No Patrick Mahomes, and really only 1, 2, 3, 4 wide receivers. You took Neighbors over Jefferson. Let's move on to round 2. So I've got Brock Bowers. Adam's got Malik Neighbors. Round 2 starts off with Patrick Mahomes. I just mentioned him. That was to Dan. Then Jordan Love, Trey McBride. I agree, a very good value there. Theo Grimminger took Jahmyr Gibbs. I thought that was a good pick. Brian Thomas Jr. to you. I took Puka Nacua, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Caleb Williams was a guy I strongly considered when I took Puka Nacua. He went just 2 picks later. Then Drake London, Nico Collins, Drake May, Lad McConkey. So let's start with the quarterbacks in this round. I think Love is one of the more underrated quarterbacks in terms of consensus dynasty rankings, because that's usually because he's at like QB 14. Here he goes QB 7 right behind Mahomes. So it was Mahomes, Love, Caleb, and May in round 4. Is that too high for Jordan Love?
I think so. Especially I don't know how you take him over Trey McBride. And my opinion was we're at a really good spot with quarterbacks right now, right? Some of the guys who we've been depending on for a long time, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, and guys like they've aged out. But we've got good young quarterbacks. We've got guys that are still in their prime. It's a deep position. I waited at quarterback in this league. Now, I obviously don't have the best quarterbacks. I have Cam Ward and Bryce Young, but they were 2 of the 3 most recent number 1 overall picks. I think Love has such a little upside. He's very safe, but not an upside play that I do think this is 14th overall. I think it's far too early. I wouldn't have considered him here.
Yeah, I think listen, this is Matt Walters, who's a friend of the show, might show up here in the chat.
Watching right now.
He could show up at any moment. Like, it was funny. We had one of my favorite moments in FFT Dynasty history was last Tuesday, right before we started the draft, and Matt hadn't taken his team yet. And so we got into the show, and I knew some of the people in the chat knew him. And I said, can you guys please get a hold of Matt Walters? And it was like 90 seconds maybe. And he was in the chat finding out that he got into the league. So the FFT Dynasty community definitely came through here. I mentioned you took Brian Thomas Jr. right before I took Puka Nacua. What separates those 2 for you?
Oh boy. I would say a couple things. One, you've got Brian Thomas Jr. with a young quarterback, not probably as good as Stafford, but a young quarterback.
Right.
Whereas obviously the Rams are in a much different situation. Puka's had a pretty extensive injury history. Brian Thomas Jr., I don't know that he's better than Puka Nacua. I think Puka Nacua is one of the more underrated players in the NFL. I think, I don't know if people realize just how great he is. He does it in a sort of a different way. But Brian Thomas Jr., the yards per route run last year as a rookie was just through the roof. I would say it's probably the explosiveness of Brian Thomas Jr. and the youth of Trevor Lawrence compared to Matthew Stafford.
But I think we all agree those guys are kind of in that big second tier behind Chase and maybe Neighbors and Jefferson.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know why Neighbors is viewed so differently than Brian Thomas Jr.
I think because he did what he did with that collection of quarterbacks, and now he has Russell Wilson for this year, and he has Jackson Dart, who we think, even if Jackson Dart's not necessarily a franchise quarterback that gets a huge second deal, he's going to be better than the quarterbacks Neighbors played with last year. So I think the expectation is I don't know how much better people think Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be than what he was last year, especially with Travis Hunter showing up. But there, I would view Neighbors as probably the third most likely guy to finish as wide receiver 1.
Okay, I mean, because you just think he's going to have so many targets. Thomas was so much more efficient than Neighbors last year.
No, that's a good point. Now, we saw 2 running backs in round 1, only 1 in round 2, Jahmyr Gibbs. Now, I have a 4th guy in that same tier with them, Devon Achane. I don't know how much the calf injury played into this, but Achane does not go in round 2. Let's flip to round 3 for what I thought was one of the best early values of the draft. He goes with the 3rd pick in round 3. It's Bo Nix, then Jackson Smith and Jigba, Devon Achane, Omarion Hampton, Justin Herbert, Travion Henderson. Man, the running backs in round 3 are just fantastic, aren't they? I take Kyler Murray. You took Tyler Warren, which really surprised me. And you thought I was saying you made a bad pick. It just surprised me. Then CJ Stroud, Bucky Irving, Brock Purdy, Marvin Harrison Jr. So Nix, JSN, Achane, Hampton, Herbert, Henderson, Murray, Warren, Stroud, Irving, Purdy, Harrison. How much has Dave Richard impacted your view on Tyler Warren over the last month as he's become Dave's favorite tight end?
Actually, honestly, if you go back and listen to our NFL draft coverage, which no one's going to do, I think I said he was my favorite player in the class. Not that I would have taken him first, but just watching Tyler Warren, he was my favorite player to watch. He's like just an animal out there. I think he's terrific. This did end up being a really bad pick because Colston Loveland went 3 rounds later. I was surprised. This draft wasn't as tight end heavy as I anticipated it being. To me, there wasn't a super obvious pick there. I think Bucky Irving would have been a really good pick for me, but I took Tyler Warren. I thought the tight ends would start going earlier. That happens sometimes in drafts. It just didn't work out. But no, this is not necessarily influenced by Dave. In the back of my mind, though, Dave was so right about Brock Bowers last year. He was. And that does, and he was right about Darren Waller back in the day too.
Dave is the tight end whisperer
a little bit. So yeah, I love Tyler Warren. I just think he's such a good player. But it may have been you think he would have made it to me in round 4? I don't know. You see, in my dynasty tight end rankings, I actually have Warren 5th. I have a tier that I wouldn't argue too much about between Laporta, Loveland, and Warren. I think most of us expect Laporta to be the best of that group this year. Warren and Loveland are a little bit younger, although Warren's only 1 year younger than Sam Laporta. So I was kind of expecting Laporta to go first. I don't think you could guarantee he would have made it back to you. I don't think it's as likely as Tyreek Hill making it back to you in the podcast league last night was. But I do. Do you agree with my sentiment that Achane falling to round 3 when Bichon and at Genty went in round 1 and Gibbs went early in round 2? Achane's just a great value there. Yeah, it's so interesting when a player is currently injured and just how you're drafting for a dynasty league. But even that little red and white mark next to Devon Achane, it makes it tough because you think about Omarion Hampton being a first-round pick with workhorse size and ability, and Travion Henderson were so high on him. But I think you have to take Achane over Travion. But I think Hampton over Achane would have made sense. That's a really tough call. Achane's been injured a decent amount, and this is his 3rd year. So I could see getting cold feet. However, 27th overall, phenomenal value. And I think Hampton 28th overall is really good value.
The quarterbacks in this round, Bo Nix goes 25th overall. And then it's a few picks later than Justin Herbert. I took Kyler Murray, CJ Stroud, and Brock Purdy also go in the range. This is kind of what we were talking about with the Jordan Love pick, is I have all of these guys in the same tier as Jordan Love. It's like QB 8 to QB 14 in my rankings. This isn't necessarily the order I'd go in. And I do think Matt Walter's got a good value on Purdy relative to where the other quarterbacks went. Maybe makes up for the Jordan Love a little bit, like you even those two out.
Yeah. I mean, I like Purdy better than Love, and he got him almost 2 full rounds later because he had an early pick in round 2 and a late pick in round 3. I got to say, I mean, kind of a bold prediction for me is that Brock Purdy wins the MVP. I think he looks great. Yeah, I mean, it's probably not going to happen. The receiving core is so shattered, but he looks great. He moves around great. He looks like Tua. You know how you watch Tua and you're like, this guy knows the offensive system inside and out. He throws the ball to an area on the field and then bam, his wide receiver just shows up there. That's what Purdy looks like to me. So dialed in. That's what I thought last year late. Some too many turnovers, but I'm a big Brock Purdy guy, and he's added a little mobility to his game, and you get the point per first down. Let me see how many first downs he gained last year. He gained 34 first downs, whereas Lamar Jackson gained 43. These are just rushing. So that's and Purdy missed some time, missed a couple of games. So that's really encouraging. I don't know that he's going to repeat that, but I think that was an amazing pick by Matt. Matt, we're friends again.
That was kind of one of the reasons that I elevated Kyler Murray, just because I thought that point per first down might help him in this group a little bit. But again, I think
he's fewer than Purdy. At 29.
Well, I believe that, but he's going to run more this year. And we all mostly think Brock Purdy's probably going to run less this year. Like, you know what I missed? I was so excited to have Adam Aizer on. I did the Adam Aizer and missed my first break. Let's take our first break. When we come back, we'll get to round 4.
You can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. So even if you can't count on accurate expiration dates,
that is a rookie mistake.
Or people appreciating your fashion sense.
Jim, the crowd is not on board here.
You can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS, streaming on Paramount Plus.
Glad we wear our good jerseys.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so disappointed. We have our Superflex redraft league starting in about 13 minutes. And so I just pulled up the draft room. Jamie just set the draft order, it looks like, and I'm picking 7th. Somehow, even though I've picked Jaden Daniels in like 15 mock drafts this year, I realized this morning I don't have him on any of my redraft teams. And so I really want Jaden Daniels, and I'm not going to get him with the 7th pick. Oh. So it looks like you are picking 4th. So congratulations on that. And so in about 14 minutes, Adam and I will be both drafting and podcasting. Let's get to round 4. Round 4, things start to get a little bit interesting. Dan with Saquon Barkley at the start of round 4, and really kind of one of those players in your rookie draft that when you take them, it almost certainly charts the path that your dynasty team is going to take. Nobody takes Saquon Barkley and then says, I'm going to go the productive struggle route. Nobody takes Saquon Barkley and thinks I'll play for 2026. So Dan now is playing for this year. Matt Walters follows that up with Travis Hunter, then Chase Brown, Tedoroa McMillan, RJ Harvey. I took Kyron Williams, Baker Mayfield, Garrett Wilson, AJ Brown, T. Higgins, Christian McCaffrey at the end of the round, and Emeka Egbuka to finish up the round. So Barkley, Hunter, Brown, McMillan, Harvey, Kyron Williams, Mayfield, Garrett Wilson, AJ Brown, Higgins, McCaffrey, and Emeka Egbuka. You took Christian McCaffrey over Saquon Barkley in a redraft league last night. In Dynasty, would you rather have McCaffrey or Barkley?
Barkley. It's only a year, but it is a year younger. And that's it. That's the deciding factor, Barkley.
I thought it was a pretty decent value on AJ Brown. And again, it's one of those red cross stickers. But half PPR is better than him than full PPR. He probably, I would guess, wasn't a great first down producer. We think the Eagles are going to throw a little bit more, but I would much rather have AJ Brown than a Garrett Wilson. And I would prefer AJ Brown in a lot of circumstances to a Tedoroa McMillan. He went just ahead of T. Higgins, who I also thought was a good value. You talked about age. I think Brown gets knocked for that a little bit. He's 28 years old. Should that matter?
Yeah, I think so. But so right. Are you going to take Garrett Wilson or Emeka Egbuka over A.J. Brown? Well, let's take if you wouldn't mind, let me just take a look at Darian's team up to that point, right? And see where he's at in terms of age. So he goes Joe Burrow, Drake London, Omarion Hampton, A.J. Brown. And then his next pick was Trevor Lawrence. So I think he's got enough youth to gamble on a 28-year-old wide receiver who could have, based on other receivers as good as A.J. Brown, he could easily have 4 good years left.
So you can provide, you always love when you're hosting FFT to play devil's advocate, even if you don't totally mean it, just to provide the other point of view. And the people who listen to this podcast are constantly subjected to my opinion that Kyren Williams is way undervalued in Dynasty. He is just happy birthday, Kyren Williams.
Oh, hey.
25 years old. He turned today. So now he's old as a running back. Has averaged over 21 touches each of the last 2 years, has scored at least 15 touchdowns each of the last 2 years, just got a contract extension to stay in the same situation with the same coach. And all they added this year was a day 3 pick. Why does he fall to the middle of round 4?
He's boring. He averaged 4.1 yards per carry. He didn't catch a lot of passes last year. That being said, boring is not bad necessarily. It's, he's so consistent. And there was a pretty big gap between him and the next running back. It was basically a full round. And then it's Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs. Taylor's 26 and Kyron's 25. I think maybe I would have taken Taylor, but that's a really good pick. I took Harvey 1 pick ahead. Who would you rather have in a dynasty, Harvey or
Well,
Kyron?
I can understand why you would do that because Harvey's so much younger.
But he has less. He's 24. Yeah, so they're your.
He is 24 and 203 days.
Oh
so he
gosh.
is closer to 25 than 24.
Kyron turned 25 today?
Kyron turned 25 today.
Wow. I didn't realize they're basically the same age. That's wild.
So I'd rather have Kyron, but I do think that you bring up a good point, and a lot of people look at it this way. Is it how many birthdays they've had, or is it how many touches they've had in the NFL? And are we counting, which clock are we counting? I tend to worry more about the age than I do the touches, but I do think that Harvey certainly has less tread on the tires.
Also, I'm sorry, I missed Christian McCaffrey. It went 5 picks after, but I think after Kyron was taken, now you've got some more difficult decisions. You got some older running backs, the Derrick Henrys and the Christian McCaffreys of the world. And Taylor's pretty young still. Jacobs is getting up there in age. He's 27. I don't know when he'll be 28, but it gets a little bit. That was a really good pick. You make a very good point about Kyren Williams. He is undervalued, and I said it an hour ago. Just because he didn't catch a lot of balls last year doesn't mean he won't this year. He's their third down back. He plays all the time. They could easily just throw to him more often, like they did when his second season in the league.
Yeah, it was 2.7 catches per game in 2023, 2.1 last year. That doesn't sound like a whole lot, but it's 10 catches, 11 catches over the course of the season. If Kyren Williams had caught 45 passes last year, nobody would say they don't throw to him very much. He would just be slightly above average in terms of receptions at the running back position. Let's move on to round 5 so we can keep this going. We get David Njoku to start round 5. So that's an older player who could, while Joe Flacco's quarterback in this format, David Njoku might have a chance to be tight end 1 because he gets a lot of first downs and a lot of catches. Njoku, then Tony Pollard, DeAndre Swift, that one hurt me, Isaiah Pacheco, Jaden Higgins. Jamie took Keon Coleman, Alvin Kamara, Mike Evans. We got out of order. So I was afraid this was going to happen.
Yeah.
So we sent the screenshots over to Harry, and I did a bad job of identifying them, I guess. I thought that we'd put those in the right order. So Adam, do you have who went at the start of round 5? Rasheed Rice was at the start of round 5. Man, that was sounding like we made a lot of mistakes. There it is. Rasheed Rice followed immediately by Xavier Worthy. I was thinking, man, these people aren't going to listen to us at all anymore if this is our round 5. JJ McCarthy, Trevor Lawrence, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, Dak Prescott, Cam Ward. Somebody was just saying nobody talks about Cam Ward. We're getting ready to. Sam Laporta, Derrick Henry, George Pickens, and Colston Loveland. That was round 5. So it's Rice, Worthy, McCarthy, Lawrence, Taylor, Jacobs, Prescott, Ward, Laporta, Henry, Pickens, Loveland. Still a lot of good players, as you can see at all of the positions. Sam Laporta going here and Colston Loveland 2 rounds after Tyler Warren was taken. So those were fantastic values. I think they fell too far. And if I hadn't taken Bowers, I would have taken one of them instead of Dak Prescott. But let's start at the very top. It's Rashee Rice. It's Xavier Worthy. This is a debate that has gone on in both redraft and dynasty. I currently have Worthy pretty significantly ahead of Rice. Something you've mentioned, the suspension's part of it, but something you've mentioned is that the way Rashee Rice has scored fantasy points is so unique amongst NFL wide receivers that are good. There was only one other player in the last 7 years or last year that had over 100 targets and an ADOT below 4. It was Wan'Dale Robinson, or below 5, and it was Wan'Dale Robinson.
Yeah.
There's been like 3 guys in the last 7 years that have scored more than 14 fantasy points per game doing what Rice has done in terms of just very, very short targets and doing it all after the catch. So that's why I'm higher on Worthy than Rice. Where do you come out on those two?
Yeah, I'll take Worthy. Look, I like explosiveness. I like big play. Now, this is a format, though, that really favors Rice because the point per first down. It's just more catches, and that's going to lead to more first downs. So Worthy, I'm hoping he's a bigger part of their long-term plans. And I just think that he's got the potential to be a really great wide receiver, especially in this Chiefs offense. Obviously, you can make the Tyreek Hill comparisons. They're just similar types of players. No one's Tyreek Hill, but I go with Worthy, and it is close. But my hope is what we saw. Again, I talked about this with Dave and Jamie an hour ago, and I want to know what you think about it. Of all the preseason games in preseason week 3, Chiefs Bears was, by far the most important one. Starters versus starters for about a quarter. And you get a whole offseason of the Chiefs talking about how they have to throw the ball downfield more and they have to be more explosive. And I do think that has been, I'm sorry for repeating all this if you listened earlier, that's been the missing thing for Patrick Mahomes. He has a combined 7 touchdown passes of 20 more yards in his last 2 years. Look no further than why he hasn't been that great for fantasy. So there's no doubt in my mind they're going to make an effort now to throw the ball downfield. And I think that's really bad for Rashee Rice.
Yes.
So, and I think it's great for Xavier Worthy. And I think this might be the year where we find out he's the best offensive player on the team other than Patrick Mahomes. So that is why I'm going with Worthy, and why I also think Mahomes is a really exciting bounce back player this year.
So this is the point where I made the decision to do the thing that I did in the Bake Burger Dynasty League that I hated myself for doing. But I took Dak Prescott over Cam Ward. You took Cam Ward with the next pick. Again, this is kind of a 2 different paths type of thing, because I don't think anybody's arguing that Cam Ward's going to be anywhere close to as good as Dak Prescott in 2025, but he might have 10 more years of playing football. He's also your quarterback from the U.
Yeah.
And so, do you feel like when you take Cam Ward in round 5, you're just drafting to make sure that you have a QB2 for the next 5 to 10 years? Or do you think he has the potential to jump into that Love, Purdy, Stroud, Kyler tier as a borderline QB1 in the dynasty ranks?
If Kyler were younger,
yeah,
he would be by far the best, the highest ranked of that group, because he has the most upside. I think Ward definitely can get in the Jordan Love, Brock Purdy range at some point. Now, they're going to have to add a wide receiver, right? And next year's wide receiver class in the NFL draft is not looking very good. The year after that is looking amazing. Obviously, there's free agency, there's trades, but I've been pretty impressed in the preseason with just his ability to do some of the things that he did in college. For example, change his arm slot and still make great throws. Make just these, that throw to Van Jefferson was great stuff. So there's going to be some bumps in the road. There's going to be some mistakes, going to be some sacks for sure. But the ability to just be that creative quarterback with that strong arm to throw from different arm angles, in the preseason, at least it was there. I definitely think he can be a top 10-ish quarterback. I don't think there's a top 5 finish in his future. But I am not drafting, in my opinion, a QB2. I think I'm drafting a top 15 guy, 10 to 15. So call it borderline 1-2.
And I think he's 18th in my rankings. And the way these things generally work, there will probably be a couple of quarterbacks that fall behind him. So as long as he meets expectations, I would expect he'll be a top 15 quarterback next year. Harry, I'll go ahead and tell you that round 6 starts with Jared Goff. So if you want to find the Jared Goff screen here, we are scrolling through. You're seeing all the picks, and there it is. Jared Goff starts the round, followed by George Kittle, Matthew Golden, Justin Fields. Another guy that Theo took that I considered the round beforehand and said, no, I'm going to go ahead and go with Dak. Bryce Young, Breece Hall, Jalen Waddle, Michael Penix, Ricky Pearsall, maybe a steal, TJ Hawkinson, James Cook, and Tucker Kraft. So it's Goff, Kittle, Golden, Fields, Young, Hall, Waddle, Penix, Pearsall, Hawkinson, Cook, Kraft. We'll talk about something besides the quarterbacks, but I think you scoffed about the idea that I might have taken Justin Fields over Dak Prescott. So Goff, Fields, Young, Penix, all go in this round. We're in round 6 now. There's a couple of guys here who could be low-end QB1s. There's also a couple of very young quarterbacks in Young and Penix. How do you feel if you're getting your QB2 from this group?
Well, I did get my QB2. I got Bryce Young. I'm pretty bullish on the Panthers offensively. I think they showed a lot last year. And Young and Ward in this format, they are not going to blow you away with rushing totals, but at least they'll give you something. Whereas Jared Goff, let me see how many. Jared Goff had an amazing year last year. He had 10 first downs. Let's see how many did Bryce Young have. Bryce Young had 15. So anyway, sorry, I'm about to be on the clock here in Superflex.
That's okay.
I'm fine with it. Yeah, I think Justin Fields is the worst pick of this round. I think he's just as likely to be out of a job, backup quarterback. If he fails again with the Jets, I think that's it. I think he's a backup quarterback going forward.
See, I think that's the interesting thing as Adam makes his first pick in our Superflex redraft league while we break down our Superflex Dynasty League. Isn't this a wonderful time of year? Is I think, again, it's that this year versus the future. And there is some significant risk that Justin Fields is beginning his last year as an NFL starter. I don't care that much about the alleged preseason struggles or the clips of him throwing off target. He's going to do that on occasion. But you took 2 quarterbacks in these 2 rounds, Cam Ward and Bryce Young. And I don't think that you believe, especially in a half point per rushing first down league,
right, that
those guys can hang with Justin Fields at all this year.
It would have to be Fields having a really bad year.
Right. The worst year of his career, probably.
Yeah.
So
rookie season was, but other than
rookie season was bad. Yeah. Or getting hurt, which is certainly possible as well. So I think that's the constant battle of a dynasty startup. And it's kind of a question I wanted to ask you because we see George Kittle go here in this round as well. Another guy who this could be his last year of being an elite performer at his age. Any year could be. If you've taken one of these guys in the first 5 or 6 rounds, is that altering the rest of your draft? Or are you still trying to balance in youth so that you don't fall into the immediate rebuild because all your old guys got hurt?
No, I think it's still early enough. You just play it out. You don't have to completely shift your strategy. Now, if you have a couple of older guys, then maybe. But I think if I drafted Fields, I would make it a priority to have a 3rd quarterback pretty quickly, just in case he loses his job. Because, and he took Addison, he took Luther Burden, he took Charbonnet, he took Ridley. No, he really didn't. He took Pittman. He doesn't have a 3rd quarterback yet. He has Stroud and Fields. So anyway, I can tell you from experience, the Deshaun Watson pick from the Bake Burger Dynasty League, was awful, obviously. And he's not even like a QB 20. He's QB infinity. He's the worst player in the world. So yes. You can't, right. There's no depth at the position. There's nothing on the waiver wire. You just can't make up for it. So tight end, it would be a little bit different if I had took a George Kittle or something, but quarterback, if you're super old at QB2 or super risky at QB2, that would influence my team. I would make sure I dipped into QB3 pretty early.
Well, I hadn't even looked at this yet, but I wanted to bring up Tim Stafford because he often ends up with a lot of quarterbacks. What I was going to say was if that happens to you, what it probably means is that you're going to him and begging for one of his 14 quarterbacks, and he took Michael Penix in this draft, and just pulling up his team here in the chat, he has Caleb Williams, he has Justin Herbert, and Michael Penix. This was his third quarterback. While other people are taking Bryce Young and Justin Fields as their QB2, he's already got 2, and he's still prioritizing getting the third in Michael Penix. I wouldn't be surprised if there's one left in round 12 if he takes the 4th, because quarterbacks are generally never cheaper in Dynasty than they are during a startup draft. I don't think we're getting close to our pick yet. So let's take a look here. If we can get to round 7, Adam, do you know who we're starting with in round 7?
Jackson Dart.
Jackson Dart is the first pick of round 7, followed by Jamison Williams, Rome Odunze, Ken Walker. He went 2 rounds later than when you took him. Devontae Smith, Dalton Kincaid. He's 2 years older. It makes sense. Yeah. Dalton Kincaid, Zay Flowers, Tua Tagovailoa, Jordan Addison, DK Metcalf, Chuba Hubbard, and Terry McLaurin. So Jackson Dart, a very early pick for a guy who's not going to be starting at the beginning of this year. Has his preseason been so awesome that he's worth it?
Well, if you remember a couple years ago, I was at a Giants preseason game and Daniel Jones completely lit it up. He was great. And he was coming off a good year where the Giants won a playoff game. So I don't put much into preseason. Obviously Jackson Dart did have a good preseason, but I'm not going to say this is too early. Now, I took Tua Tagovailoa. He was the only other quarterback in this draft, and that was my QB3. So exactly what you just said about Tim Stafford, I was going for that. I think
he might be your best quarterback this year.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But this is really meant for me to have some trade, you know what I'm saying, to have a surplus or just have 3 good quarterbacks. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. No. Dart versus Tua. I think I would have taken Tua. I didn't really like Dart as a prospect, to be honest with you. I think there's a very good chance that he's going to have a new coach and a new coordinator next year. And sometimes that's good, or sometimes it's, how can he be good? He's got a new coordinator every single year. Right. So I think it's a little early for me for Dart, I guess, just a little.
I think it'd be hard to improve on the offensive genius that Brian Daboll's proven to be so far in New York.
He is. No, I believe him. But I do think he could get fired if they have a bad year.
So I love the wide receivers in this round. Jamison Williams, Rome Odunze, Devontae Smith, Zay Flowers, Jordan Addison, then DK Metcalf and Terry McLaurin, the older guys. This was before Terry McLaurin signed his contract, so he might have gone ahead a couple of these guys. Maybe that didn't impact it at all. But amongst Williams, Odunze, am I on the clock? And I'll take a look at that in a second. And Devontae Smith, Metcalf, Addison. Do you have a favorite amongst the wide receivers that went in this round?
Williams, Odunze, Devontae Smith, Metcalf, McLaurin, Addison. All right, so it's not McLaurin, and he went last. It's probably Jamison Williams. He's young enough, great offense. You know, I think Odunze has more target potential. I actually really like the way it went. I think it was drafted very appropriately. I don't have a strong preference. Jamison would be my number 1. We are, as a podcast this year, very low on Zay Flowers compared to ADP. He might be the number 1 player that look at our consensus rankings and Zay Flowers ADP just for this year. And, you know, I'm a little nervous we're going to be wrong about that. I could see him having a massive breakout. I know it's tough with Lamar Jackson and with but they threw 40 touchdowns. What did they throw? 40 touchdowns? 35? Yeah. I forget. And he had 4. You know, like he just needs some more touchdowns.
I was just looking today, and I was surprised to see he's one of my most drafted wide receivers, and that's probably why, because Dave and Jamie have him even lower than I do. I'm about ready to draft Dak Prescott in our redraft league and make him my most drafted quarterback, and start off with a Dak CD Lamb stack in the Superflex league. So that's a lot of fun. Let's take our second break. When we come back, we'll get through at least one more round and talk about who's on our teams now.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
We are back. We're taking a look at round 8. Adam's on the clock. Harry, there's only 3 slides left. Can you guess correctly who the first player taken in round 8 was? I don't think it was David Njoku.
It's Sam Darnold.
It was Sam Darnold. Dan took him Matt took Geno Smith. Dan, I don't know why you took Sam Darnold over Geno Smith. He is younger. Jerry Jeudy went. I really wanted him. Luther Burden went. I really wanted him. Adam took Caleb Johnson, and Heath went old with Tyreek Hill. I was shocked you let me get Tyreek Hill in round 8 of a draft. You draft him all the time. Cortland Sutton right behind him, then Quinshon Judkins, Bashal Tutin, DJ Moore, Chris Olave, Josh Downs. So in round 8, it goes Darnold, Geno, Jeudy, Burden, Caleb Johnson, Tyreek, Sutton, Judkins, Tutin, Moore, Olave, Downs. Why did you pass on Tyreek Hill?
Well, with this pick with Caleb Johnson, you know, first of all, I'm picking in the middle of the round. I have the 5th pick of this round. I'll have the 7th pick of, or the 8th pick, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, of the next round, right? So, am I right about that? Or am I, whatever.
That sounds right.
Yeah. Okay. So, you know, I had gotten to the point where I'd basically been out of running backs that I wanted. And at this point, I only had RJ Harvey. So what are we in? We're in round 8 here.
Yeah.
And I only have RJ Harvey at running back. It's a half point per first down league. Again, that favors the running backs. I just felt I really needed to take Caleb Johnson. The next running backs were Quinshon Judkins, who I don't know. I get the value there. I didn't want to take him. Quinshon Judkins, Bashal Tutin, Tony Pollard, DeAndre Swift, Isaiah Pacheco. I actually did really like those running backs. I had a feeling that I wasn't going to get them. And I didn't. They were all gone by my next pick. So I needed a running back there. If I took Tyreek Hill or Cortland Sutton or whatever, it just puts me in such a bind at RB2. So, you know, that was my thinking there. I think Caleb Johnson's getting a little bit too much hate based on very limited action in the preseason.
This is the point, and it happens a lot. I mean, just every startup draft is different. But when the old guys fall, we reach a point where I just have such a hard time taking a guy who I am not sure is going to be a starter this year over a guy who I think I might be top 12 this year. And that's kind of what happened with Tyreek Hill. I was considering Cortland Sutton too, but I like both of those guys this year a lot more than DJ Moore, Chris Olave, or Josh Downs. And so I ended up taking the older guy in Tyreek Hill. We are moving into round 3 of our other draft. We are going to break down where our teams sit through, I think, 11 or 12 picks. We may not have made the same number of picks, but let's take a look at that. I will tell you guys, if you want the full results from this draft, I'm going to do my very best, assuming it doesn't bleed into week 1, to get this published for you so you can see where we drafted everyone. But just looking at my team, Adam, you can tell me how terrible it is or how awesome it is. And I know you've got a pick coming up. But my quarterbacks are Kyler Murray and Dak Prescott. Unfortunately, I do not have a QB3 yet, but not as pressing when you have 2 solid starters. My running backs are Kyron Williams and Breece Hall. My wide receivers are Tyreek Hill, Zay Flowers. Puka Nacua, Tyreek Hill, and Zay Flowers. My tight end is Brock Bowers. The bench is a little bit old. Not really. I've got 2 flexes. Alvin Kamara and David Montgomery are both in the flex positions for me. And then I have Khalil Shakir and Harold Fannin Jr. on the bench. Did I go too old again?
No, I don't think so. I mean, your quarterbacks are who? Dak and who?
Kyler. Running backs are Kyron and Breece Hall with David Montgomery and Alvin Kamara in the flex positions. And half PPR, half point per first down, I would strongly prefer to have running backs in the flex versus wide receivers.
I like your team quite a bit. I'm sorry, I'm on the clock.
Adam is on the clock. I'm going to read Adam's team while he makes his selection, and then he can talk about his team while I might make my selection. So Adam has 3 quarterbacks: Cam Ward, Bryce Young, and Tua. So probably 3 guys that are going to finish somewhere between 13 and 32 at the position this year. He has 2 very rookie running backs in RJ Harvey and Caleb Johnson. The wide receivers are incredible: Malik Neighbors, Brian Thomas Jr., and Mike Evans. Another rookie at tight end in Tyler Warren. Your flexes currently are Tyrone Tracy and I think probably Christian Kirk with Elijah Arroyo on the bench. So I've got Fannin, you've got Arroyo. We're both hoping for that future tight end production as well. You have an interesting team because it's so young. And then Mike Evans kind of stands out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like with Neighbors, Thomas, and I'm pretty high on RJ Harvey. I felt like I had a chance to compete this year if I can get top 15-ish seasons from Cam Ward and Bryce Young. So Mike Evans is set up for, I think, a really good year. And I think I could have 2 solid years left in him, but
both of your tight ends are rookies right now.
Yeah.
Are you considering adding one of these vets?
Yeah, for sure. Arroyo, I'm not expecting much this year, but I'm pretty excited about him. And look, you're doing a startup dynasty league. You got to get in on the tight ends. The first 5 or 6 that were drafted last year or this past year, you got to have some of them. This was a great tight end class. This was a great running back class. You got to have some of these rookies at these 2 positions, I think, or you're probably making a mistake,
So Dan Schneier's on the clock in our real draft that we're doing, Adam. Guess who the top player in my queue is right now? Dan's made his pick. It's the guy that I draft.
It's definitely Brock Bowers.
It's definitely Brock Bowers in the middle of round 3. So I guess I'll start with Dak, Lamb, and Bowers for that draft. Keep an eye out on CBSSports.com for the full results of the FFT Dynasty Superflex tight end premium half point per first down draft. And we will be back on Friday. That will be our last Friday show for a while. We'll be on Tuesdays during the regular season. We will talk to you on Friday.